everyone, it's Stephanie here with a video from My Favorite Things. In today's video, we are going to be recreating a card that design team member Yoonsun created using products from the new May 2017 release. So we're going to be using the new Shaker Flower Die-namics die set. This is a really great die set that allows you to cut out this really large floral focal image for your cards, but it also can be turned into a shaker card. The center area of the flower is sized perfectly to fit the circle shaker pouches that you can get from MFT. So I'm going to recreate the card that Yoonsun created, and it's really fun and has a really great layering and watercoloring effect. So I already have all of the pieces that we're going to be using die cut just to save a little bit of time. So I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch watercolor panel for the card front, and I've cut out a bunch of these leaves with the open area on the inside. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking some liquid glue and I'm adhering them directly to this panel. Now you can do this a couple of different ways. If you have sticky double-sided adhesive, you can add that to your watercolor cardstock panel before you die cut the leaves, and that will save you having to add the adhesive as you add each one. But I also wanted to do it this way just to kind of show you that it's quick and easy. You can add the adhesive directly to the back. I like using the matte multi-medium just because if it does kind of ooze out the sides, it's going to dry completely matte and you're not going to see it. And it really didn't take me that much time to kind of quickly add this to the back of the leaves and then just adhere them down onto the panel. So the circle area in the center of that panel was cut from the circle die there from the shaker flower, and I was originally going to put the shaker window through that hole, but I decided to change it a little bit, so you're going to see that in the video a little bit later. But it did work great to kind of give me an idea of where my flower is going to be positioned, so I was able to adhere all of those leaves onto the panel. So now that I have that done, I went ahead and let those dry for a little bit. I didn't kind of want to knock the leaves off by adding the ink with the blending tool. And so once I knew it was completely dry, I just took my 2 ink colors, which is Worn Lipstick and Scattered Straw, and I'm adding a bunch of ink to both corners of the panel with my ink blending tool. Just kind of plopping the ink on there. I'm not worrying about it being nice looking or anything because I knew I was going to go in with a paintbrush and some water to really even out this color and kind of spread it around that panel. I love the idea that Yoonsun did here with adding the color with the ink blending tool and then kind of letting it kind of spread around that panel with the water and the paintbrush. It's a really great way to add color and kind of add an artistic flair to your panel, and it takes like no time at all and no effort because you're literally just adding the ink onto the surface and then just kind of moving it around with the paintbrush. Now when I did start to add the water, I decided that it didn't have the ink as concentrated as I wanted it. I wanted a little bit darker and more pigmented. So what I did is I just put some of that ink onto my craft sheet and I just picked it up with my paintbrush and water, and that way I was able to apply a little bit more ink to that panel and just make it a little bit more vibrant than what I had originally gotten from the ink that I had applied. So now that we finished the panel, we can just set that aside to dry and work on the rest of the pieces of the card. So I have the new Beach Bunny stamp set, and I'm going to stamp a sentiment from that set onto a strip of Cherry Crisp cardstock. So I'm just using Versamark ink to stamp the sentiment, and then I'm going to heat emboss it with some white embossing powder. I really love how vibrant that sentiment is with the white heat embossing on the red cardstock panel, and it really ties nicely into the ink color that we used on the card base. Now, I personally never would have thought to use a red cardstock strip for the sentiment, so this is one of the great things I love about being able to take these cards as inspiration and redesign them each month, is doing something different that I would have never thought to do. So I went ahead and heat embossed that. I trimmed it down so the ends were cut short, and now I'm going to go ahead and start to assemble the shaker flower. So I've already went ahead and cut out the flower and the frame detail there around the flower. So the flower is cut from Peach Bellini cardstock, and then the little frame piece is cut from Coral Crush. So I added some adhesive all the way around the inside edge of that flower and then put my circle shaker pouch directly in there and adhered it to the flower. And then I just put it upside down on my work surface so that I could fill it with sequins. So I just kind of picked an assortment of sequins that I thought looked nice with the background that we created as well as the various colors of cardstock that we're using in the flower. And this is where I decided to kind of modify it a bit and not use the hole that I had already created in the panel. So rather than put the flower through the hole, I decided to assemble the whole flower as one piece, and then I wanted to put this onto the card with some foam adhesive. So I cut out a circle. It's just freehand. It's sloppy, it's messy, it's no worries because you're not going to see it at all. All it's doing is kind of closing that flower so that all of those sequins stay in there and I don't have to worry about anything falling out. And then I'm going to adhere the little frame to the top part of the flower to finish that off. And now what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to let me put the flower onto the card front with dimensional adhesive and not the whole panel. I decided I wanted the panel flat to the card and then just have the flower raised up. So once I had it all together, I put some foam adhesive on the back and then I just adhered it directly to the front of the dry panel. Now to create the card, I needed a card base as well, so I did cut a top folding card base that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which is the same size as my panel. And now I'm just going to take all of the pieces that we've created and adhere everything together. I love the colors that are on this card. I think it is so pretty. I think they blend so nicely together, and I really love the overall design of this. It is so different for something that I would normally create, and it's like I mentioned before, I just love having the kind of creative push to do something a little bit different by recreating a card that I wouldn't necessarily make on my own. So I adhered that panel onto the card front. I'm going to cover up that hole with the flower so you're never even going to know that I had cut it out in the first place. And now that flower has some really great dimension and it's lifted off the card. To finish it off, we're going to add a few more leaves kind of around the flower. So I have some more leaves cut from grout gray and cement gray cardstock just to kind of add a little bit more color, but not really since it is gray. But it's a different hue, so it really looks nice. And then I also have a couple of white watercolor leaves as well that are solid. And I decided to add just one of those kind of trimmed short, and I'm going to tuck it under the lower right-hand corner of that flower. And I did kind of make sure to lift up the ends of those leaves just to give them a little bit of dimension and kind of lift them off the card a bit. And then once I have those adhered, I can add my sentiment strip. So I'm just going to add some adhesive to the back and put it right onto that shaker flower. And now we have this beautiful card created. We have this really great textured watercolor finish on the panel with this really fun focal flower that has a shaker detail in the center. So thank you so much to Yoonsun for creating such a beautiful card for us to recreate. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.